So if you would want people to remember one thing or one key idea from your book, what would that be?
That if they want to understand Ladino in the 21st century, they only need to read one book, Ladino on the Internet, Sepharad 4.
So you mentioned in the first part of this interview what has been called Web 1.0? Web
1.0, yes.
So let's start from the beginning. What is Web 1.0?
Right, so this is the very beginning of the internet. So we're talking about late 1990s, early 2000s. And at the beginning, if you remember, the internet was mostly read, meaning people created websites, you read the website, and if you wanted to interact with that website, you had to create your own one.
Yeah.
Through which to post your content. It wasn't as dynamic as it is today. People didn't have the chance of writing comments down below, etc. And so the kind of platforms that you could create back then to gather a significant community of speakers, in this case of Ladino speakers, would be correspondence circles, and in particular email lists. And that's exactly what happened with Ladino. In 1999, Ladino Community was created, and it was a pioneering effort, extremely successful when it comes to allowing people to communicate on Ladino from all corners of the world via the internet.
Yeah, so what exactly is Ladino Community today?
Yeah, so it's an email list where everybody can participate in, and the only condition is to write exclusively in Ladino. Now, people don't need to be proficient for them to send messages to that email list, because each message is moderated and edited and only then published. So if there are any quote-unquote mistakes or things that can be improved on, those will be handled by the moderators before the message being published. And it's an excellent tool for learning and practicing the language and keeping in touch with other Ladino speakers across the globe. And that's how I started to learn Ladino myself. So I'm really grateful for that initiative, which is not to say that it doesn't have its flaws or blind spots, etc.
And so what are those flaws and blind spots?
So this is my first bit of criticism. So let me preface that by saying that this is a critical social linguistics book, right? It is not a massage parlor. It is not a pat in the back. It's meant to be both descriptive, but also critical. So I describe what the platform is about. I trace the origin and the history of it. And then I say, okay, here and there are things I don't understand or I don't agree with or could be changed. And I do that even to my own platforms, such as Ladino 21, etc. So it's just a standard to which I hold every initiative accountable. And I do this in every book, right? So there's nothing personal in this criticism. In fact, I'm very good friends with Rachel, and she has helped me a lot throughout the years, and I have tried to help her as well. So Ladino Community, as I said, the pioneering effort. Every other effort on the internet to revitalize Ladino by digital means is premised on or a footnote to Ladino Community, in my view, including Ladino 21. Now, we have to understand the context in which this is born. This comes from a Congress about orthography in Israel, which was held in 1999. And there Moshe Shaul, de bendicha memoria, en Gareten que repose, Moshe Shaul said, I would like for somebody to create an email list so that we can disseminate the Aquí Yerushalayim orthography of Ladino, meaning Ladino written in the Latin script following the Aquí Yerushalayim magazine orthography.
Right.
So this means that the revitalization of Ladino online was always already intractably linked to it's being written in the Latin script following the Aquí Yerushalayim orthography. And that has advantages and disadvantages. Right? On the one hand, everybody knows the rules by which to write. On the other hand, this means that other geolects, dialects, scripts, etc. get erased. They are not represented. So therefore, over time, they're lost.
It is that also comes into the fact that a lot of the Hebraic scripts aren't available on technology today, let alone 20 odd years ago.
That's also important, right? Exactly. You're right in that the Latin script is much more accessible when it comes to writing on a computer. Even though nowadays we can write on Solitreo in Google Drive, for instance, on Google Docs. There are ways of installing Mekorot Rashi. As you know, we have installed that as a font for Ladino classes. So there are more options than there used to be, but it's still very tricky. In fact, as part of writing this book, the thing that took me the most time editing, sending proofs back to the editor, etc., was the Hebrew script. It was a headache to edit. Just a few words are written in the Hebrew script in Hebrew scripts for both Yiddish and Ladino. And it was very, very hard to edit because people will get the letters wrong all the time. And then if part of the word is in one line and the next one is in the next line, then the whole thing gets messed up. And I think you feel my pain, right?
I do, and it's I don't understand how you can read when it's all over. But yeah, no, I understand your pain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What is Ladino Community like today? Is it still? It's just still exclusively an email list?
Yes, it's still exclusively an email list, but it's a bit more open to the multimodality that characterizes the Web 2.0, and we'll speak about this later. Meaning that, for instance, Rachel, whenever she sends messages, she not only writes the message, but also attaches audio, for instance, or links to videos from Ladino 21, etc. So even though the email list is very restrictive when it comes to the modality of communication, i.e. the written word, nowadays it's a bit more supplemented by audio and video. Yeah, attachments, for instance, also for images.
And how can people join the mailing list?
They can just Google Ladino Community. They'll see the website there. It's hosted by main groups, and they just can send an email there and they will be contacted by Rachel. Otherwise, they can contact me by email. I can put them in contact with Rachel. It's very, very easy. It's for free. And the only condition is to write in Ladino, or to try to write in Ladino so that the moderators have something to work with, which they can publish them in Ladino.
And does this initial introduction email need to be in Ladino, or can it be in English? Or
no, that can be in English. In fact, the creator and moderator has been living in Dallas for decades. Rachel Amado Bornik, she speaks English fluently. So yes, writing in English is not a problem. Also in Spanish, even in Turkish. Rachel is also fluent in Turkish, in Hebrew perhaps. So yes, it's definitely a lot of options. What has been your experience with Ladino Community? Because I joined as early as 2014, but you joined more recently. So our experience perhaps is illustrative of how much it has changed in the last decade.
So my experience has been relatively limited because I'm still learning Ladino.
Right.
Sometimes I get a little bit overexcited and start trying to put really abstract thoughts into there.
Yeah.
But obviously, it's not fair for someone to edit all of that. So
right. Yeah, that's another thing. Sorry, that's another thing I would like to explain. Like, this is entirely pro bono. Nobody earns any money, and in fact, they have to pay for the server to be active, right? So they rely on crowdfunding for that. And so there's only so much time people have in their hands to help with that. And so what I recommend for people is to start slow and small, and then to scale from there, right? So I did that myself. My first emails were Shalom, que haber, estoy en casa, things like that. Very simple.
And if I can sort of add to that, I think my two experiences with Ladino Community, I don't know if it's just a generational thing, but I find the email chains very inaccessible, and to maybe young people, I don't know, I'm not that young, I'm in my 30s, but obviously I grew up with the internet and social media. It feels, I feel that it's a little bit off-putting for younger people when it's chains and chains and chains of emails. And I don't know how that can be accommodated, but hey-ho.
There is some flexibility there. So you can select whether you want a daily digest or a weekly digest or emails as they come. So it just depends on, for instance, I used to have it as emails as they come, but maybe I just received 15 per day, which was a bit overwhelming. So now I have it as a daily digest. So I can go see the topics of the emails, and if I'm interested, I can click and read the actual email. So I think there's flexibility there.
And just a final comment on my experience with Ladino Community is that because it is open to anybody, anybody can contact anybody else. So
yes,
it's you've got to be careful what you post in there, I suppose. But,
so you mean to say that there are privacy concerns because once you send a message, your email is now removed from the message, so everybody can see what your email address is and contact you independently from Ladino Community?
Yes.
Okay.
And I say that from personal experience, and I did have to. There is an option where you can send complaints to, I guess, Rachel and the other people modding the forum. But other than that, it's been a very nice experience. It's just I don't get the full breadth of the community whilst I'm not fluent or proficient enough to engage in a authentic way, shall we say.
It's also a matter of where you live, because as much as it is online, I think it's meant to be a part of a mixed reality interaction where you get to know people because of the email list, but then you meet them in person, and then on the email list, and those two realms are mutually reinforced. That's what happened to me when I arrived to New York City. I already had some contacts on Ladino Community from people that I knew were living in New York City, because you have to write your name and the place where you are currently at the end of the email, right? So I use Ladino Community to then meet, for instance, Benny Aguado or Daisy Braverman or all the people in New York City. And that added a lot to the experience.
Right, okay. So that's good to know, because I didn't consider that it is a place where you could meet people. So that's quite interesting. That's very good to know.
Yeah, you see, if you're in London, see if there's anybody in London. For instance, I know that Michael Alpert writes sometimes on Ladino Community, and he's in London, and I met him through Ladino Community. It's like, I know you're in London, I'm in London too, let's meet, let's talk about Ladino. And he gave me this book he wrote a translation of a book into Ladino. So shout outs to him.
Do you have anything else to say about Ladino Community?
Yes, keep it up. I'm very happy that Ladino Community has remained strong even after the pandemic and after the advent of Web 2.0. And I think that it has stood the test of time. So I'm very happy to see that even though it was created as a Web 1.0 platform, it has survived Web 2.0 and adapted to it, and it will likely stay for the long term. So very happy about that.